You scroll through hundreds of job descriptions, but they all sound the same. You spend so much time on every application, but it doesn't seem to matter. You send off application after application, but never hear back. You thought the interview went so well, but it's a no. You jump through all the hoops. The news keeps saying how there are all these employers that are struggling to find people to hire. So why does finding a great job have to be so hard? It doesn't seem very logical or fair. It's not. The system is broken. It's not your fault. The process most people go through to get a job is awful. But here's the good news. The system isn't very smart. In fact, it's downright dumb. It can be beaten. How? Most prospective employers and employees today are using the same old tired strategies that have been around forever. It's like professional camouflage. Everybody just blends into the crowd. But you don't have to be that way anymore. You can get traction. You can stand out from the crowd to unleash your God-given potential, to help a world in need, to do work that matters, to earn what you and your family deserve. You can do this. You're meant to do this. There are bright things on the horizon for you. This is the way. Hello, my friends. My name is Eric Woodard. I'm a high-performance leadership and career coach based out of Washington, D.C. And if you are here today for this workshop, well, I just got to tell you, you are very, very smart for being here. Now, some of you are watching the replay, and that's pretty cool. And you're nearly as cool as those who are here live. So either way, if you've offered some of your valuable time and just energy to be here today, commitment I want to make to you is that we're going to make it really worth your while. So glad to have you here. And just in case you're wondering, like, most of this workshop today is going to be one big long sales pitch. Nah, I got nothing to sell you, folks. I got nothing to sell you. Like, all I got is a bunch of tactics and strategies, is pure content that you can use, that we can put you to work. I know some of you have written me ahead and they're like, Eric, we want to schedule a call. And so we'll get to that in a sec. But before we get to any of that, if you would, and I also want to make sure people can hear me, put in the chat where you're from and how long you've been on the job search. If you would put that in the chat, I would be grateful. And we're going to get going because, folks, being on a job search often can feel a lot like pounding sand, right? It can often feel like waiting on a glacier. Chris in LA, been on the job hunt. I see there David and Nicholas, right? Sometimes it can feel, Ali, it can feel like being adrift at sea, Beverly. Sometimes it can feel like wandering through the desert, Lori and Renee and Jasmeet. Sometimes, Kate and Dallas, it can feel like going into the arena. Sometimes it can feel a lot like sort of looking into an abyss, Jacob. Sometimes it is just not really that fun. So look, if you are Takashi and Irvine, if you're somebody unsure about the direction you want your career to go, Raphael and Savannah, if you've been struggling to find ways to describe what you do, if you're uncertain if your resume is any good, if you've been wrestling with how to follow up after you apply, if you're tired of applying and hearing nothing back, if you've been doing interviews that seem to go great and then you get the big fat no, if you feel trapped in a job you don't like and you're not sure how you can escape, and most of all, if you're losing hope, you are in the right place. You are among friends. You are in good company. On the other hand, if you're somebody who's just kind of super casual about your career, not really willing to do the work, just sort of reluctant to take responsibility for the results you've been getting, you're interested in just finding a job to make money, you're stuck in your ways, and you sort of know a lot of things about why things are the way they are. If you're unwilling to be authentic, this may not be the place for you, because what you're going to learn today is how to get hired fast without settling, getting ignored, or losing hope. I'm going to offer you 4 strategies, 9 tactics that you can put to work right now so that you can do work that matters and pays what you and your family deserves. So our agenda today, I'm going to just tell you briefly who I am and why I may know what I'm talking about. I might not. I might just be having a good day or a bad day. We don't know. We're going to find out. I'm going to offer you these 4 strategies, 9 tactics. And then, and this is brand new, I just worked on this like Sunday. I have a new giveaway that I'm going to give those of you who are cool enough to be on this call. Like I've never shared it before. So it's going to be really cool. And we're going to do some questions. So sound good? And look, the way this works, folks, there's a little bit of a delay between when people put stuff in the chat and I see it. So if you have questions, put them in there. We're going to get to it. We've got Jessa here helping us today. And so Jessa's going to capture questions. And at the end, if there's any that we've missed, we will get to them. So here we go. Here's the first question for you. Who is this guy and why does he think he can help me find a job? Well, first of all, I don't know if I can help you find a job, right? That's one of the reasons people book calls with us, because they explore that. And if you're interested in that, by the way, we're going to put the link in the chat right now. If you already you knew about this before you even signed up, somebody had said, hey, you got to do this workshop. You got to talk to these people. That's the link to book a call. And we've even got like time on the schedule, like this afternoon, like you don't have to wait around. So if that's something you already know you're interested, go ahead and do that because the calendar is going to fill up. But who is this guy and why does he think he can help me find a job? So look, I'm kind of a weirdo. I grew up overseas. I grew up in Asia. I came to the States when I was 17. I wound up transferring college 7 times. And here I am in the Midwest, sort of wondering why it's so damn cold. I wound up, after transferring 7 times, as a scuba instructor on Guam. And that was pretty cool. I spent about 10,000 hours underwater doing this with the fish, right? And that was great, but my brain got a little spongy. And I was like, this is great. And I got a lot of sun and there's fish and it's beautiful. And I thought, what could I do with my career that would really be awesome? And so I thought, where could I work? And I said, that must be something like the White House. So I took out a piece of paper and I wrote the world's worst cover letter and I mailed that off to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And I thought, I'm never hearing from those bastards. And about a month later, I was riding my bike past the Guam post office and they came out and they said, Eric, you got this envelope on White House stationery. I said, well, that's interesting. I opened it up and it was an internship application. Now, I didn't know what the hell an internship was, but I was really good at filling out applications because I transferred college so many times. I mailed that in and I'm like, wow, I am definitely never hearing from those guys. But at least I still had the cool envelope, right? Thanks, Beverly. I still had the cool envelope. And that got me thinking, and I applied to some grad schools, wound up getting into grad school here in DC, was like out dumpster diving for furniture and bought a pair of running shoes and was out running past the White House. And I thought, those White House bastards, they never even bothered to let me know about that internship thing. So I found a quarter, I found a payphone, I put it in And I called them up and I said, hey, what about that internship thing? And they're like, is this Eric from Guam? I'm like, yeah, man, I've been trying to get in. You didn't write me back. They're like, man, we've been trying to get in touch with you. You're supposed to start in the first lady's office on Monday. So I said, well, that's interesting. So I took the metro to the mall and I got a haircut and I bought a suit and I showed up. Now, look, folks, I know we're in a real political season right now. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on. I don't know if your politics match mine. Please forgive me if they don't. But this is going to tell you how old I am. This is back during the Clinton administration. I went to work in Hillary land, right? Hillary Rodham Clinton. She was a great first lady. Followed her. The whole was on her staff. Eventually was an intern, got hired on her staff. Wound up following her to the U.S. Senate, where I was with her for all 8 years, doing a bunch of crazy stuff. Then I followed her to the State Department, where I did a bunch of stuff with UNESCO. And then eventually I left Hillary land and I wound up as director of fellowships and internships at the Smithsonian. And all during that time, right, at both, helping professionals at all levels, early career professionals, but also CEOs and princes and kings and princes and titans of industry, all people at different parts of the career, all sorts of different industries, all sorts of different places, all sorts of different backgrounds. In my own career and others, I saw the same movie over and over again, right? Where people were running into this stuff with jobs, and it only seems to have gotten worse, right? So now I coach. I've written a whole bunch of books, right? I have a whole bunch of fancy degrees, pieces of paper, right? I have all these glowing recommendations, and you don't care about any of that because what you care about is, can I help you? I don't know. Maybe, probably. Let's find out. And Kelsey, I see you there. We might have you you might be on a delayed feed, Kelsey. So hopefully you're seeing us soon. So what about you? Right. So let's go here. So we're going to offer you 4 strategies today that are going to help you elevate your job search immediately. All right. So here's the first one. And let's put this in the chat, folks. Let me ask you, what's a good resume about? Right? If you would, what's a good resume about? Put it in the chat if you would, please. What's a good resume about? Let's see if anybody gets the right answer. What's a good resume about? Sorry there, Kelsey, we're not seeing you there. What's a good resume about if you would? Put it in the chat. Let's see if anybody gets it right. What's a good resume about? So Jennifer says, matching my skills with their needs. Lori says, briefly highlighting your skill set. Brian says, content. Roxana says, how I can strengthen the company, right? Sarah says, keep it simple and to the point. I haven't seen the right answer yet. Let's see here. Let's see if anybody else gets it right. I haven't seen the right answer quite yet because a lot of people would say, right, hitting all the right ATS filters. That's interesting, Shikashi. Ali says, short and tailored to the job. It needs keywords, Brandon says. Okay. Ooh, Jennifer says, selling me. Okay. Be yourself. I can get on board with that. Okay. So look, what a lot of people are saying is it's about you, right? Nicholas says it's about showcasing your accomplishments. RB says it's getting through the internet. Nicole says it's metrics, right? A lot of people say a good resume is about you. And that answer is incorrect. Because if you want to be influential with another human being, what's the first thing you want to talk about? It's not you. You want to talk about them. A good resume is not about you, folks. A good resume is about them. So look, if you get nothing out of this workshop today, or if you're just watching the replay and you just, you wind up watching the first part of this, which would be crazy, but why would you do that? But a good resume is not about you. A good resume is about them. And when I talk about resume, I'm talking about your cover letter, your resume, your follow-up, your networking, your interview. You're going to make it all about them. So this is the first strategy. It's not about you. It's not about them. It's definitely not about selling yourself, because folks, we've gone over this historically. Selling people is weird. Buying people is weirder. Nobody wants to be sold. And yeah, there's just a lot there. So many job seekers thinking applications are about them. Employers are focused on themselves, right? The reason Google gives lunch to Googlers is not because the purpose of Google is to feed people lunch. The purpose of Google is to make better Google. And the reason they feed people is that they're looking for, people to make better Google. Okay. That's the whole point there. So a good resume is not about you. A good resume is about them. And it's no wonder we would think that a good resume is about us, because probably the first resume we put together was in school. And in school, it is very much about us, right? It's our cubby. It's our report card. It's our trophy. It's our transcript. And yet when we move to the working world, it's about the customer, the client, the constituent. It's about that. So you get nothing out of this workshop today. It is about, make it about them. All right, let's move on to the next strategy. So if I went to a public library, folks, and I found a shelf full of storybooks, and I looked at the front cover of those storybooks, there'd be some words on the front cover of those storybooks. What would we call those words in English? If you would put it in the chat, please. Right? What would we call the words on the front cover of those storybooks? And Kelsey, sorry, it looks like you're having trouble connecting to us. Sorry about that. Maybe we are going to send a round of replay, so hopefully that comes through better. So if I went to a library and put some words on the front cover of a storybook, what would we call those words? There you go, Roxana. Title. Lori's got it right. Title. Exactly. Now, isn't it interesting that those are the same words we use to label people in the workplace? Which tells me that just like the title is the label we put on a story, a title is also the label we're going to put on the story of one's career. And this brings us to the next strategy, which is stories. Let me ask you this. And again, this is something for the chat. What percent of human decision-making do you think is emotional versus which is logical, right? Is it 50-50, 60-40? Thank you, Jessa. What percent of human decision-making is emotional to logical? Put it in the chat. Right? Put it in the chat. Let's see if anybody gets it right. What percent of human decision-making is emotional logical, right? So we know, so there you go. Jasmine says it's 80-20. Brian says it's 7-30. Okay. Roxana says it's 90% emotional. I haven't seen the right answer yet. Oh, David. Do you guys see what David put on there? David says, and Takashi, look at what Takashi put on there. It's 100% emotional. Would you believe they're right? It is 100% emotional. Human decision-making is 100% emotional. And the reason we know it's 100% emotional is when somebody gets their limbic system damaged, they're fine, except they can't make a single decision. And that's the debilitating part, right? And so a lot of people think we want to have facts and data on our resume. We make data-driven decisions. Nobody makes data-driven decisions. It's all, the original decision is always 100% emotional and happens very quickly. Now, we will then spend a lot of time rationalizing that originally made emotional decision with logic. But the original decision, like you guys who got on this webinar, right, live, or the ones who turned on the replay, you've already made a lot of decisions about me and the content and whether I know what I'm talking about. You made those in about 3 seconds. Even if you don't realize it, right? And now you're just getting data to sort of rationalize whether maybe I know what I'm talking about. Maybe there's something here you can use. But the original decision is always emotional. And the reason stories are so important is this is how we convey emotion, right? Maya Angelou is often attributed for saying people won't remember, the facts, but they'll remember how you made them feel. And she's right. That's what people are going to remember. They're going to remember stories. So if you don't have stories throughout your stuff, you're really leaving something on the table, right? Stories eat data and facts for lunch, right? Perfect example. One time I was taking applications for a program and got a whole stack of applications, went through the stack of applications, and there was a woman in there by the name of Sarah. And she talked about how the summer before she'd been in a terrible car accident and her arm had been severed. Oh no, right? Like that was crazy. So we accepted her. She came in, first day of the program, she walked in, 2 arms. Now, was I upset that she had 2 arms? No, I was so happy. It was bandaged from where it had been partially severed and reattached, and she was doing some physical therapy. She was going to be okay. And I remember that story to this day. There's probably not a lot of facts I could remember about Sarah. If I was to ask you, I always get in trouble when I ask this. If I was to ask you what your phone number was when you were 5, although there's some of you on here, they'll be like, I remember, right? There's going to be a lot of you who wouldn't remember, but a lot of you are going to remember how you feel on your 5th birthday. Stories. Okay. Who can tell me who this guy is? What is this guy's name called? I'll give you a hint. He's from Idaho. What is this guy called? Who knows? Let's see who knows who this guy is called. What's this guy's name? There you go, Heather. Way to come through, Heather. Heather knows who this is. Nice job. That's right, Heather. That's exactly right. So this is Napoleon Dynamite. And so first of all, if you don't know, you haven't seen the movie Napoleon Dynamite, please immediately stop your job search and go and look up Napoleon Dynamite, go see the movie. Come on, folks, we're trying to create a society here. Okay, so you're definitely, right, the chicken challenge. That's right, Heather, right? So you're definitely going to want to check out Napoleon Dynamite. And I don't want to spoil the movie, but basically the premise of this particular scene is that Napoleon Dynamite's a high school kid. He sort of beats to his own drum. He finds himself on stage in front of the entire student body, and he's managed to get a cassette tape up to the sound booth. And he's got to do this impromptu dance performance. And so the music starts playing, and Napoleon's got to do something. So he just does this wild dance. I mean, it's just the craziest thing you've ever seen. He metaphorically opens the kimono. I mean, it is wild. And when he's done, he's sort of panting and sweaty, and the entire student body's like this. And then they burst into applause. And the reason it works is because it's so authentic. Jamie Kern-Lima, the founder of It Cosmetics, says, everybody's a good dancer if they commit fully. And she's right. And this brings us to the next strategy, authenticity. People are going to hire you because of who you are, not in spite of it. And if you've been spending a lot of time all of a sudden making the dates of your graduations disappear because you're worried about your age, right? Or you've been taking off years of experience because you're worried about your age, or basically you've been doing anything to conceal anything on your resume, how's that working? Because remember, it's never the scandal, it's always the cover-up. And right? Let me ask you a question. Who do humans hire? I'll save you the time. Humans hire humans. Now I can collectively hear people say, but Eric, what about the ATS? ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. Like there's some one unified Skynet matrix ATS out there. First of all, there's not one system. They're all different. And at the end of the day, it's a myth, folks. Like you've been sold a bill of goods, like ATS friendly resume. ATSs don't hire people, humans do. So you might as well make your resume human friendly. And those of you who are like, but how do I get through the screening software? It's one of the things we talk about in my program. I'll give you a hint. It doesn't involve trying to please and placate an algorithm. We still have thumbs, folks. Don't forget about your thumbs. And by the way, even if you don't believe me, how's that been working? Trying to get the right keywords. So stop worrying about the ATS. So Renee says, I'm sorry, this does feel like one big sales pitch, especially knowing we have a fee. Well, that's okay, Renee. This isn't for everybody. And again, this isn't costing you anything. So I invite you to just listen because there could be things here that serve. Hopefully there are. Okay, so you want to be human. You want to be relatable, right? So perfect example. Like one time I had a couple of applicants, right? They were virtually the same. There was Tom and this other guy. And Tom told me he played the trumpet. The other guy didn't. Who'd we choose? We chose Tom because at least he played the trumpet, right? If you don't have evidence on your resume and your stuff that you're a human, you want to put it on there, right? One time, this was in the last fall, we had a client on her resume. She put 2 truths and a lie. And she got 2 interviews out of that and 2 offers. Humans hire humans. I could be wrong, and I'm not. Okay, authenticity is your superpower. Okay, so final strategy. Here we go. Final strategy, right? Abraham Lincoln says, give me 6 hours to cut down a tree, and I'll spend the first 4 sharpening the axe. Okay, and this brings us to the strategy number 4, consistency. So look, those of you who have, been working on your job search, and, you feel like you're using all the dials and, levers and all the things, right? And you're like wondering why it doesn't work. Well, there's a good chance, you're working with a control box about this big, and you probably got like a sticky button and like a gear shift that doesn't really work, right? And you're like, why isn't it working? Well, the thing you may not realize is there's an entire control room of controls that you don't even know about. Right. And so no wonder you're having trouble with your job search. Like there's nothing wrong with you right now, right? The results you're currently getting are perfectly attuned to your current system. So if you want different results than the results you've been getting, you're going to want to have a different system, right? And that's the idea here. Like, and if the system you've got working isn't working, you iterate. And there's not one system that works for everybody, but it's hard to know what the settings are going to be for you unless you know where all the controls are. Right? So remember, there's no such thing as a failed experiment. This isn't about you, my friends. This is about your system. All right. So let's talk about how we put all of this together. So I want to tell you about a client of mine. She worked with us a couple months ago. Her name's Angel. And one of the parts of my program is we have a group call and things happen on the call. And so just if you would roll it, and we'll see what happened to Angel on that call. In the time we've got left, I'm curious, especially if there's somebody we haven't heard from yet. They've had a win, a loss. Angel, I got to ask you, what do we know, if anything? What do we know?
I got the
Whoa!
job! Yay! The offer. I'm moving in a week. Yeah, it's crazy. And I know when we first met, you're like, oh, like, let's get something by your birthday. And my birthday is in 4 days, so I was able to do it. Yay!
And I just want to acknowledge you. Like, you dove in, you did it, you did the work.
Thank you.
Way to go.
It would have been possible without like signing up for this program. Truly, I think it made the difference for me.
So good, Angel.
Yeah.
Really happy for you. Super awesome. Congratulations to you. Yeah. Totally awesome, folks. So let's see how we put all of this to work, right? Because you can have all the great strategies in the world. And, just like Angel, she attended a workshop just like this. And, she signed up and she got quick results, much faster than she'd been getting. Okay. So 9 tactics. We're going to go pretty quick. So here we go. Buckle up, folks. 9 tactics. Here is tactic number 1. And now, folks, again, if you're watching the replay and, you've been tuned out, you've been like trimming your bonsai tree, like, come back to me. Because if you get nothing out of this workshop today, I want you to get this. Okay. We're going to put this in the chat. Let's say there's a lake, and in the middle of the lake, somebody's drowning. Now they're surrounded by other people in little boats. Okay. So somebody's in the middle of the lake drowning, and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. If that was a job search, who's the person drowning? Put it in the chat if you would, please. Yeah. Thanks, Jessa. So there's a lake, and in the middle of the lake, somebody's drowning, and they're surrounded by other people in little boats. Who's the person drowning? Put it in the chat if you would, please. Let's see if anybody gets it right. People have been getting this right lately. So I think people are, oh, Chris, my heart. Chris got it right. Right? Let's see here. Yeah, Brian, that's exactly right. A lot of times we act as though we're the one drowning, right? We act as though like we're on the job hunt. We've got bills to pay, right? There's pressure on us. It feels like we're the one drowning. And the truth is, it's actually not us. It's the employer, right? They're the ones drowning. And we know they're drowning because they told us, right? They put up a job description or whatever, and they've said, help, we're drowning. And the people in the boats are actually the job applicants. Now, some of those applicants will row up and they'll say, help, like, pick me, right? And the people drowning in the water will be like, that's weird. Like, get the heck away from me, right? Others will row up and they'll say, hey, my name's Chris. My name's Brian. You're drowning. That's terrible. Let's have a conversation to see how we can get your ass out of the water. No opinion whether I'm the right one to pull you out of the water. What's important here is you don't drown and die, right? So this brings us to tactic number 1, and that's your mindset. You're not the one drowning, right? Is a tool I use for coaching, right? A lot of times when we're on a job hunt, our brain's like this. It's smushed together and nothing can get in. And it's only when we realize, let's see if I can do this on the webinar without messing things up. We realize that we're safe. We have control, right? We have approval, that it opens up, and that's when we get miracles. So if you don't have that mindset, that could be part of the reason you're not getting as much traction in your job search as you'd like. Most people think, I hope they pick me. I hope they pick me, but realize they'd be lucky to get you, right? You can get any job out there. There's lots of jobs, but there's only one you, right? There's only one Heather. There's only one Renee. There's only one Chris. There's only one Brian, right? And remember, don't be selling yourself, right? Like, this isn't about sales, right? This is about service. Selling people is weird. You don't want to do that, right? Yeah. Sometimes I'll have people in my program, they're salespeople, and they'll be like, Eric, this is hard. It feels weird that I'm the product. And I'll be like, hey, you're not the product. Possibility is the product. So it's just a misunderstanding. All right. Some of you have seen the show Deadliest Catch, right? And this is where, crab fishermen in Alaska, they have these big steel cages, right? They drop them on the ocean floor. They put a little bait, and little crabs come along and start nibbling, right? And more crabs join, and eventually the bait's gone and the crab pot starts to fill up. Now, here's the interesting part. When the bait's gone, if and when a crab decides, all right, guys, I'm out of here, the other crabs will pull that crab back in. They'll even remove one of their limbs. They'll even do a crab murder, right? They'll pull them back in, right? And at the end of the day, it's the worst possible thing because everybody gets pulled up to become dinner. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is your environment, right? A lot of us think that we're getting results or not getting results in our job search because our willpower, or we're not disciplined, or we're lazy, or there are, a million other things. I just want to offer to you that environment eats willpower for lunch. And if you're not being super intentional about your environment, you're really leaving something on the table, right? And some of you may have heard about the idea of reference groups, right? You're the average weight, education, income of the 5 people you hang out with the most, all those sorts of things, right? And so you really want to make sure your environment's supportive, right? If your given family is telling you stuff, well, let's just go settle and all that sort of thing, it's something to pay attention to, right? Because that stuff, it can even be authors that lived 100 years ago. They don't even have to be alive. If that's your environment and it's not serving you, you really want to pay attention to it. You want to safeguard it 100%. All right, folks, it's hard to hit a blurry target. Sometimes I'll talk to potential job seekers and I'll be like, how much money do you want to make? And they'll be like, well, I don't know, anywhere between like $50,000 and $100,000. I'll be like, got it. And how, what do you want to do? Well, I want to help people. I'm like, okay. The problem is that's super vague. And this relates to a thing called the reticular activating system, which basically is like, if I say red, like now all of you who are listening to this are suddenly a little bit more aware of red because I just told your brain to look for red. And it's the same thing with a job search, right? We will literally be blind to things unless we tell our brain to look for it. And it's very hard for our brain to find help people. Well, what people, where, how, when? So you want to have clarity in your job search, right? A lot of times people will come to me and they don't have real clarity around how they're going to help the world, right? Salary, occupation, goals. It's vital. There's a reason when race car drivers drive 500 miles in a circle that they don't look at the outer wall. It's because where they look is where the car will tend to go. So you don't want to be that. You want to be really intentional where you're looking, right? There's the proverb like, where there is no vision, the people fail. That's what we're talking about, right? Where there is no clarity, the job seeker it doesn't work, right? It doesn't work. Okay, on to the next tactic. Okay, now this is for the chat, folks. And I see you there, Roxana. So this is the chat. So if I went to the store and I bought this, what would I be buying? Put it in the chat, please. So Roxana says, how to answer the salary inquiry during early stages of applying for a job. Great question, Roxana. So the temptation can be to like offer a number and you don't want to do that. Roxana, what I would do is if they ask my salary, what I want, I would say, well, given that you want this and 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 this, and you're looking for the best person, what did you have in mind? Right? You don't have to do the work for them. Right? Okay. So we got great question, Roxana. So Heather says this is a tool only. You would need the bill, the battery. Beverly says this is a drill. Brian says this is a drill, right? I haven't seen the right answer yet. If I went to the store and I bought this, what would I be buying? Let's see if we got any takers on here. So a lot of you are saying if I went to the store and I bought this, that I would be buying a drill, and that would be wrong, right? Because what I actually don't need this sitting around my house, right? What I actually need is a hole. I need a hole in my wall. Yeah, something to screw in fast. I see you there, Beverly, right? RB says, what you need, okay? Well, I don't need a hole in the wall. What I actually need is a place to put the hook. And now that I think about it, I actually don't need a bunch of hooks coming out of my walls. It's dangerous, right? Gash my arm open. What I really need is a place to hang the picture of my family. And actually, Allie, I see you there. What I actually need is I don't even want the picture of my family. What I want is the feeling of my beautiful family, the feeling that I get when I look at the picture of my beautiful family that's hanging on the hook that's in the wall that was made by the hole. And this brings us to the next tactic, which is give safety. A lot of people, hopefully not a lot of you because you've watched this workshop, right? A lot of you are living in the world of talking about yourselves, right? It's me, right? When you go to an interview and they say, tell me about yourself, you're answering, right? Your resume is all about you. You have one of those big block of texts up there talking all about yourself, okay? Which is a hot dumpster fire. Please stop doing that. Some of you are talking about them and you're talking about the drill. And we don't want to do that. We want to talk about the thing that keeps them up at night when they're trying to go to sleep, looking at the ceiling. If you can literally drill down to that black swan, you're playing a different game, folks. Do you see how this is fundamentally a different level than worrying about ATS and concealing your age? Like, that's amateur hour, right? You want to work at a deeper level, right? You want to give them safety because there's only one reason they're going to hire you. There's just one reason. And I'll give you a hint. It's not your experience. It's not your skills. It's not even if they like you. The one reason they're going to hire you is they trust you, right? You might be the best at the job, and if they don't trust that you are, you won't get it. Conversely, you might be the worst at the job, and if they trust you are, you'll get it. This is all about trust. And the way we develop trust in others is through vulnerability, right? Making them feel seen, heard, and understood. This is how you get hired fast, right? What keeps them up at night? How can you make them feel seen, heard, and understood? Because all they're really asking is, can I trust you? And if you tell them, yeah, you can trust me, well, that's you telling, not showing. And that's also about you, right? The opportunity is to make them feel like they can trust you. And also, hopefully, because it's true. Okay, here we go. Tactic number 5, resumes, paper. Now, look, folks, resumes are stupid, right? The idea that we're going to boil our lives down to a couple pieces of paper is kind of ridiculous. And everybody's got a different opinion. And they're more art than science. And it's the least bad way we've come up with. So yeah, you got to have a resume and you got to have a cover letter and all that kind of stuff. And those of you who are using best practices and templates, how's that working? Right? It's the equivalent of professional camouflage, right? I can spot a teal resume miles away, right? You want your resume to not look like everybody else's. You want it to not even be about you. You want it to be about them, right? So look at my resume. Like I got all my resumes like the kitchen sink of resumes. It looks even crazier now than it did, okay? But you want your resume to be different, right? You want to communicate with them in a way you cannot ignore. And remember, it's just a communication piece. How you send it, what you say, when you send it, all really matters. Okay. For instance, you have hyperlinks on your resume. Like that's a fun trick. Add those. All right. Tactic number 6. If a job application is submitted and there's no follow-up, does it even make a sound, Beverly and Mariana and Brian and Beverly? I would suggest that it doesn't. Now, some of you are like, well, I follow up after the interviews. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about you apply and you follow up. And some of you right now are like, well, but Eric, I don't know who to follow up with. Let me tell you, if the person you loved most in the world was in a hostage situation and the only way they got rescued by the end of the day was that if you found somebody's email, could you do it? Of course you could. Of course you could. Right? And actually, and I don't know if I'm going to have it right for this group, but I'll tell you what, if after this workshop, you email me and you tell me that you attended on April 8th, I will send it to you. I actually I've got a free course I'm giving away right now about how to find anybody, right? I'm filming it. You can do it in about 5 minutes, right? So follow up, right? Because you can tell them that you know how to show initiative and you know how to do all that stuff, or you could show them and people are going to believe what you show them. Now, some of you are like, ooh, Eric, isn't it too pushy to follow up? That would be like somebody face down in the water and you splash them and you say, hey, buddy, are you okay? And they don't move. And you're like, I don't want to bug them, right? You would be willing to risk offending them for the chance to save their life. And remember, these are folks that are drowning too. So we want to be willing to risk offending in the name of service, right? This is not about us trying to look good. This is about serving them. We want to follow up. Right? Yeah, Beverly, that's right. So perfect example. There's a guy named Darren Hardy, used to publish Success Magazine, redheaded white guy in a shiny suit, just like you would expect. And when real estate openings would open up, like other realtors would call mid-morning and be like, hey, it looks like you're trying to sell your house. Darren would show up 5 a.m., clipboard, full suit, knocking on the door. The people would open the door and be like, who are you? He'd be like, hey, I'm Darren Hardy. I'm here to sell your house. And if they didn't sign up with him then, he would send like a big gift basket around 10. Associate would show up around 1 with a sold sign and hand it to him. I mean, he wasn't afraid to offend in the name of service. And here's what he said. He said he lost about one out of 5, but he got the other 4. And that's exactly what happened, right? So you want to do the same. You want to be willing to offend in the name of service. I am, right? I am. Okay. So let's go to tactic number 7. Okay. Now look, folks, this is one of those things where if you haven't been paying attention, come back to me because I've got a client couple clients right now that I've been working with for a couple months, and I haven't been able to get them to do this, and they're finally doing this, and they're finally getting results. Here is the tactic, right? You ever seen the Academy Awards, right? Where some movie star gets up there and they win the big prize, and they get up there and they say, well, I got nobody to thank. And it's sort of quiet and awkward, and the music's, no, that doesn't happen, right? Movie star gets up there and says, thank you. I've got so many people to thank. I got to thank this person, this person, and they're playing the music, trying to go. When people do great things, they don't do it alone. Asking for help makes you strong, not weak. This brings us to our next tactic, right? Which is networking. If I asked all of you on this call and I said, okay, folks, of your Google contacts or however many you had, how many people know you're on a job search? Some of you would sort of sheepishly raise your hand and be like, well, they know. And I'd be like, how do they know? Well, I posted it on LinkedIn 3 months ago. So I'd be like, oh, so they would have had to gone to LinkedIn 3 months ago, happened to go to your profile, and they would have remembered what everything that happened 3 months ago and still know you were on the job. And you'd sort of be like, right? Ask people for help. And you want to have a system for doing it, right? Some of you maybe are like fishing with single lines, right? And you're dropping single lines and you're doing it as one-offs. That's fine. But boy, that means you got to get the right bait on the right fish at the right time, in the right place, at the right depth. I mean, just a lot of things have to line up. What we want to do instead is filter the ocean, right? We want to filter the ocean because we don't know where the fish are going to show up. We don't know. And probably where we think they're going to show up is not where they're going to show up. So ideally, like, you're going to have a system for doing this. And that's tactic number 7, right? And just remember, asking for help makes you look strong, not weak. And when you ask for help, it's a gift because you wouldn't ask for it unless you thought somebody's help was worth something. All right, here we go. Tactic number 8. We're in the home stretch. Here we go. Interviews. So who would like to have the best interview advice in the world? Here it is. All right, here we go. Best interview advice in the world. Okay, you may want to write this down. Hopefully you've been writing all of this down. Here it is. Okay, listen carefully. Don't answer their questions. Right? A lot of you are going into interviews being like, oh, I got to get their questions right. Now, look, if it's a technical interview, it's a very black or white thing, 1 + 1 = 2, sure, answer their questions. But for most of you who are asking questions like, tell me about a time, or what's your greatest strength, or tell me about yourself, like, you're spending a lot of time and energy actually answering their questions. And remember, the only reason they're asking questions is to gauge whether they can trust you. They're making mouth noise to get you to make mouth noise so they can judge whether they can trust you based on the mouth noise you make. So you might as well make mouth noise that supports that helps them trust you. And the way you do that, talk about them. Don't be answering the questions, right? Focus on the answers you're going to give. Give answers and tell stories that show them you're somebody they can trust. All right, folks, final tactic. This is offers. Sometimes what I'll run into, and we got such a great crowd here, right? So many of you have stuck around. It's great. Sometimes I'll run into people and I'll be like, well, how's the application going? And people will be like, well, Eric, you got to understand, I'm really particular about where I apply. I'm like, well, that's interesting. Tell me more. They're like, well, you got to understand, if I apply, then, I apply and then I get the job and then I have to move to the family Connecticut and blah, 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 a million other things, right? Here's the thing to consider. 1, you don't have to worry about whether you're qualified for a job in order to apply. They will have an opinion on this. Trust me. 2, you don't have to worry about whether you want a job unless and until it's offered, because until that happens, you're kind of just negotiating with yourself. So you don't have to worry about whether you want a job and whether you're qualified for a job unless and until you get the offer. And when you do, you can live in a place of possibility. Okay. So it sort of goes back to the question, I think it was Roxanna asked about, well, how to talk about salary. Somebody asked you about, well, would you accept $1 for this job? My answer would be like, well, that's an interesting question. I'd have to see the offer. Or given that you want this and this and this and this and this and this, how could I accept that for $1? Or what's your thinking on that, right? There's a million other ways you could handle this. So you don't have to worry about it until you get the offer. Remember, you can apply liberally from a place of service. All right, so you want to write all this down, folks, right? 4 strategies, 9 tactics that you can put to work right now. I just want to show you one other example. We had a client named Kay, sort of the same situation. She was on one of these group calls and she got a result, right? So I just want to show you, those of you who've especially been on the job hunt for a long time, you're doing this alone. It's painful. Like you're trying to get results by working on the same little gear shift. You don't have to do this alone because all these people found their way to me just by coming to a workshop like this. So just say, if you would, roll K, please.
Path, man. Keep on the path. All right. We're getting a bigger crowd now. It's so nice. Tell me who else has something to share. Yeah, Kay, talk to us.
So I went off camera a few minutes ago because I just got an offer from my dream job and my dream company. So real time, it happened just now. So on, thanks, Eric.
Awesome. All right. So I see you there, Angel. I see you there. Yeah, looking for administrative job. So look, I saw a little bit of grumbling on here, right? People were saying, "Oh, this is all a sales job. There's a fee." Yeah, right? Like, you want to get hired fast. Yeah, we charge money for it, folks. I'm not going to hide that. And here's the thing on that. Let's say you wanted to get a $120,000 job. That's the opportunity cost there is $10,000 a month, which is $2,500 a week. That's how much it's costing you to be out of work, right? So some of you who are like, yeah, I'd really like to get this help, but I can't afford it. Like, look, folks, I can guarantee you, if you're on this call, you can afford it. And by the way, like when we work with people, we have like all kinds of payment plans. It only costs a couple $100 a month. And the first step we would do before we even talked about any of that is we determine if we could help you. So if you're interested in booking a call with us to determine if that's true, we're going to put the link in the chat. Book a call with us. Now, here's my request. If you don't have a single dollar to your name, you have no savings, and you have no one you could borrow from, I don't want you to book a call because this is just going to be frustrating for you. Because yeah, it does take a couple $100 a month to get started. Okay. So if that's for whatever reason, I just wish you love and light. On the other hand, if you're somebody who's been working on this, right, for a while, and you're tired of getting the same results you've been getting, and you're just scared, you're the kind of person I want to book a call because you don't have to do this alone. And you can get this handled. We got a program. It's all kinds of awesome one-on-one coaching, and there's group stuff and course stuff, and it's amazing. I promised that I would give you a giveaway here, and this is brand new. I just filmed it on Sunday. For those who sign up for a call and show up for the call, I've got a 23 module LinkedIn course about how to make your LinkedIn profile awesome. Nobody's ever seen it. We're going to send you that. No strings. You don't have to sign up for anything. And if all you get from the call is just some clarity about what's going on with your job search, that'll be great. And you get a free LinkedIn course. So if you are interested in doing a call, please book it. But we have some questions now. So let's take some of these questions. Whoops, that is not the button I wanted to hit. I am so sorry. Let me put this in a different place. Oh, it's run amok here. I want this one there. So now you can see my giant head. Sorry about this. Okay. So let's take some questions. I didn't see too many. So if you have a question, don't be shy. Okay. So thanks, Jessa. This is a question from Hunter. He says, when I hear a role has been filled, I thank them and ask what I could have done better. But how do you get real feedback instead of generic, we chose someone else? Okay. So Hunter, I really feel you on that. In my experience, they will almost never give you feedback. One, because they sort of, especially if it's a recruiter, they have no incentive to, and they have a lot of reason not to, because let's say they do give you feedback and that's something you decide you can sue them on. Not saying it is, but it just opens them up to liability. And many recruiters, and especially HR people, are designed to minimize liability. So as a default, they will say nothing. And also, this is sometimes where you'll be in an interview process and all of a sudden just people will disappear. Isn't that fun? Because it's safer legally for them to just vanish than to say anything because they're worried about getting sued. So not saying it's fair or logical. It's messed up. Now, here's the thing I can say, and this is a little bit of a distinction. When you're working with recruiters and they say something like, oh, yeah, Beverly, we'll get back to you, right? You don't want to just say, okay. What you want to say is, hey, that's fantastic. That sounds really good. Can I ask you something? Yeah. What do you mean you'll get back to me? Oh, well, next week. Super. Next week. That sounds great. How will you get back to me, right? You want to look for opportunities to co-create agreements because a lot of times people in a job search, again, they're feeling like they're the ones drowning in the water. Realize you're the one in the boat. This isn't about you looking good. You don't have to walk on eggshells. They're the ones drowning. So you don't have to be in the business of like pleasing them. You can ask them real questions, and it'll actually, at least in the experience of my clients, it'll help because people are going to respect you more. Yeah, hope that serves, Hunter. Hope that serves. Okay, next question. Next question, Jessa. What do we got here? Okay, so Beverly, from sign up to getting a job, what's the time frame? Okay, so Beverly, I think you're asking about my program. I appreciate that. So yeah, so the guarantee we offer is that we'll work with somebody, get them offers in 3 months or less, or we'll stay with them until they do. And that's not uncommon. Like a lot of people get hired fast because, you know, the people that kind of look, my program's not for everybody. Some of you are here in this workshop and you're like, you know, this is great. I'm going to try a lot of this stuff on my own. Fantastic. And what happens is a lot of times those people come back after me after about 6 months and they say, Eric, I've been doing it on my own. And I'm like, show me. And they're not doing it. Right. And then they invest in the program and then they get things sorted. Right. So about 3 months or less is the answer, Beverly. So, yeah. And again, you know, I saw I say I'm a coach, so I work on managing the issue. Right. So it's fine. People want to grumble about the fact that we charge a fee. That's fine. That's okay. Again, I'm willing to offend in the name of service. And like the fee we charge is infinitesimal compared to like what it's costing you every week you're out of work. So anyway, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. Okay, next question. What else do we have here? David, can you give some advice about career transition at 46? So, David, I just want to send you a lot of love, man. I just turned 52. So 46 sounds like you're like a spring chicken. So it sounds like you're making 46 mean something, David, is what it sounds like. I'm curious what you're making it mean. It sounds like maybe you're making it mean that you're old. I don't know, 46, maybe that's old. I have no idea. What I can say, David, is that you might want to consider the story you're telling yourself. Is it old? Is it not old? I have no idea. But either one of those stories is equally believable. And if you are maintaining the story that 46 means something that works against you, my invitation is like, you're welcome, Julian, right? My invitation to you is like, it might be really empowering for you to drop that story. Right. And the reason to work with a coach is we help you do that. Right. Because it's not just like, oh, magic trick. Right. We're going to do like a Men in Black flashy thing. And you're like, oh, I got it now. That's not quite how it works. But yeah, my question back to you, David, is like, what do you mean? Like, what's so special about 46? That's my question back to you. Hope that serves. Okay. What other questions do we have here? These are some good ones. Beverly says, can I get a job to pay the bills and then work with you to get a job on my dreams? You could. I mean, like, you know, there's some people that get part-time work. Now, the only, you know, danger with that, Beverly, is that like, you know, like sometimes this will happen with substitute teachers, right? I'll have clients and, you know, around a little bit earlier than this time of year, like they'll start subbing. Their job search basically stops until summer. Because even though they think that they're going to make it a priority, right, other things happen, right? And the thing about job searching is there's so much psychology. In a way, by making an investment and not working, like you don't have any choice, right? You want to talk about motivation, and at least with my clients, as long as they're doing the work, this is part of the reason people get hired in 3 months or less, because they're just people who value, you know, time more than money, and they're just not messing around. Not for everybody, but for those who are serious job seekers and they're just tired of messing with this stuff. Like we get this stuff handled. Like we don't mess around. Hope that serves. All right. What other, oh, Angel, we have another Angel. So Angel, hopefully you saw the video from the first Angel. Her name was Angel too. As a 23-year-old with no college degree, I'm struggling to find work with realistic positions. What should I be seeking? Well, the thing about job seeking, Angel, is you don't want to live in realism. Okay. If we're trying to like cure COVID or make airplanes fly, we want to be realistic. Job stuff is made up. Salaries are made up. Positions are made up. Titles are made up. It's all made up. So a right question to ask is not what I should be doing. The right question to ask is, what do you want to do? Now, look, for your consideration, 23, my heart goes to you, right? You're really early in your career. I'm just curious. I'm just going to put it out there. I'm curious if what you're finding is not having a college degree is a barrier to you finding a job that you want. People don't need a college degree, right? For a lot of jobs, but it sounds like the jobs you're looking for, you need one. What would be keeping you from getting one? And if the answer is money, I hear you, right? I really hear you on that. And I just wonder what's possible for you, right? That's what I would say for you. And again, Angel, I don't know you at all. I don't know your situation. So please take that for what it's worth. But that's what I would say to you. And what job should you be looking for? The one you want. That's what I would say. That's what I would say. All right. What other questions, if any? I know that might be all of them. So look, folks, those of you, who've gone through this workshop, again, I said that I would have a free giveaway for those of you who stuck around, and a lot of you have. And the free giveaway I want to give away is like this LinkedIn course, right? If you've been here on this workshop, we're going to send it to you. It may be a couple days. We're still putting together. Excuse me. Let me rephrase. For people who book a call, we're going to send you the LinkedIn course, not people that show up for the workshop. For people that book a call and you keep the call, we're going to send you the LinkedIn workshop. So yeah, so if you're interested in just exploring what's possible for you, like let's talk. And I know a lot of you are like, oh, I can't afford it. Well, maybe, right? I guess the question I would ask is, how's it going affording what you've been doing? And how long's that taken? And how long is it going to take? And if you just want to like get this handled, like, let's take a look to see whether we can help you. It's totally possible. And again, if you're somebody that's like, you don't have a, two nickels to rub together, like I love you. And like, I just don't want this to be a frustrating experience. So hold off on booking. But look, folks, I really acknowledge you for being here, for giving so much of your valuable time. We've got one more question from Angel. We'll make that our last one. She says, do you know of any reputable certification I can get that will secure me an administrative role? That's the position I'm looking for. So Angel, I just want to point out to you, it sounds like you're making it about you, right? I need a certain certification. So if instead of making it about the certification you might need, my invitation to you is make it about them. Find an employer, and you're welcome, Roxana. And instead of saying, hey, what certification I need, go to them and say, hey, what's going on with you? And whatever they say, if that's the job you want, that might give you an answer. All right, folks, I send you so much love. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Jessa, for your help. And again, if you're on a job hunt, if you've been on a long road, please know you don't have to do this alone. We are cheering for you, and you can get this job thing handled if you want to. Thank you, Kate and Roxanne. I hope to see you all. Take care of yourselves, my friends. Great to see you today.